Hello, I hope you're all well. Today is going to be a follow-up video on the previous one talking about aperture. We're actually going to delve in and use it in a real-world scenario. So today I've got my mic, I've got a Nikon D90 and a 50mm f1.4, and we're going to shoot some photos. We're going to be shooting this in aperture priority mode. So to give you a brief recap on the last episode, the aperture is the opening and the closing of the lens. The larger the opening, the shallower a depth of field. The smaller the opening, the larger a depth of field. So we're going to be using different apertures to capture different aspects of the bike. So shooting in aperture priority has a couple of advantages. One, it means that you're only focusing on your aperture with regards to non-compositional aspects, so that you can decide your depth of field and then focus more on your composition, what your image actually looks like, rather than trying to figure out exposure. The other benefit is that your camera is going to decide your shutter speed and your ISO automatically to compensate for these. Now we're on a super sunny day, so we're going to struggle to get these shallow depth of field images, but let's see what we can do. So it's a couple of days after starting to film that video there. It's actually the day of upload for this video. And I'm kind of not very good at talking about the more creative side of things. I'm very good at talking about, I like to think I'm very good at talking about the technical stuff, because that's hardwired information and kind of it is or it isn't. Whereas creativity is more subjective. I know what I like to see when I'm taking photos, and ultimately it is down to you as the photographer to kind of figure out what you like. All of the images of the bike were shot between f2.8 and f5.6. I couldn't go any wider open because it was too bright outside, and I couldn't get a fast enough shutter speed or a low enough ISO on the Nikon to get that. But like I said, that was all shooting in aperture priority. Bits I can recommend when you're shooting. So if you're trying to shoot wide open, for a start, it is possible to do that on things like your kit lens. So we'll use the Nikon, the 18 to 50 lens. I've got one kicking around somewhere. You got the 18 to 50 lens. If you zoom it all the way out, so it's at 70, well, the equivalent of about 70-ish millimeters, yeah, you're going to be an aperture of 5.6, but you can still get a really shallow depth of field by doing that. Just what I've covered in the couple of previous videos ago is, think about your distance of your subject relative to your background. You can still get those nice shallow depth of fields. What you can also do as well is, like on the last shot I had of the bike, is try and shoot through things, or so open your aperture up as much as you can and put something in front of it. So I find foliage works really nicely, so grass, leaves, things like that work really nicely. At the end of the day, it's all about just playing around and figuring out what you like. I'm a real sucker for stupidly shallow depth of field. As much as it is somewhat of a cliche, I like it. It might not be a technical masterpiece, it might not be, you know, there might be people who go, ooh, he's just shooting his lens wide open, but I like it, and that's the most important thing. You know, there's a time and place to stop down, there's a time and place to shoot wide open, but it's all about kind of just playing around. So I'd recommend just put your camera in aperture priority, run around, take photos of things inside, you know, in the realms of wherever you can get to at the moment. Just really try and do that. Many cameras will do it as well. So if we take the example, beautiful shot of my face there. So this here is my little B camera. It's a Nikon J1. It's a tiny little mirrorless camera. So the sensor on this is pretty tiny, but it is an interchangeable lens camera. It is a camera you can manually control. So if I turn it on, I go into the menu, and if I go actually into the settings, if I go into the exposure mode, I can select aperture priority, I can select shutter priority, whatever I want to do. So I'm going to put in aperture priority. So you can still get shallow depth of field on kit cameras, on kit lenses. That is on a 30mm, which is around about 70-ish, something like that on that lens. So it's worth looking at. Yeah, so that's it for today. I hope you found it at least a little bit useful, or hopefully a tiny bit inspiring, that you can do a fair amount with a tiny amount of gear. Please join me again for next time. We're going to be looking at shutter speed in the next set of videos for talking technical, and then following that kind of practical version of that. We're also going to be developing film soon, which I've just finished editing together, so we're also going to have some film in there as well. So enjoy your day, guys.